Hello, my name is Carl Surrey and this is a video tutorial for the Facebook group called Fans of Serif Software. Now I want to look at using the brush tool and more importantly making brush tips for yourself to use using text or images. I don't necessarily want to go too much over looking at the brush tool itself because Serif have made a pretty good video themselves, and the link for that is this text up here. So that will stay on the screen for most of this time here, so you've got plenty of time to take a note of it and find it for yourself. And it covers pretty much the basics. And I just want to sort of go on slightly from that point. So we're looking at this in both Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer. For the PC, they should pretty much be the same on the Mac. And we are going to start off in Photo. Now, if we come to the paintbrush tool, you can press B on the keyboard or click on this icon over here on the left, and from there you can pick the brush color, and from this tab you can pick the brush tips that you want to use, whether they're hard edged, soft edged, or you can alter the settings for that also up here along here in this context bar. You can also change the different types of brush tips, and you can also import some, like these daub blenders I imported because they were free from daub, and there's a couple that I have made for myself, which is what I want to look at in this tutorial. So what I will just have a quick look at is this one here, which is one I made for my signature. So this is what I want to sort of repeat in this process. So let me just go back to a basic one. So the cursor's not so big and in the way. Next to the brushes tab over here, up here in the right corner, there is a little square with a downward arrow, and this opens up the menu for the brush tool and brush tips. Now, as we saw here, there's quite a few different categories, and you can make your own new category with create new category here. Click on that and it will make a folder called brushes. Every new brush folder it makes, it calls brushes. So if you made 3 or 4, it will be called brushes 1, 2, 3, 4. So it does help if you rename them. So again, you can come back to, as long as that's the one that's currently selected, you can come back to this menu and rename it, and then you can just call it whatever you want. I'll just call it name for want of a better name. So as you can see, we've now got a folder called name, but there are no brushes currently in here. So I'm going to need to make another signature. So what I will do is I'll come to the frame text tool, and I will just make a frame here. I'm going to select which one should I go for? Let's go for the Berkshire Swash, and I'm going to make it about 30 in size, and then I'm just going to type my name. There we go. Now I've done that, I'll make it just a bit bigger, I think. go with 64. Right, what I want to do now is I want to highlight this just by clicking and dragging across the name, and then come up to File and Export, and what I'm going to do is export it as a PNG 24, and from this drop down menu I will save it as a selection but without background. Not that I have any background here at the moment, but just to make sure, I'm going to save it without any background, and then click Export, and then I need to navigate to where I've saved. I'm going to save this particular file, and I'll just call this name, and then click Save. So that has now saved that as a PNG file, but without any background. So coming back over to the brush menu here, and I'm still on name, I can click on this menu, and I'm going to use new intensity brush. Click on that, it will open up a folder. You may need to navigate to where it is, but mine's already set to where I've saved mine, so I'll click on that, click open, and if I now come back to the brush tool, click on this brush, it'll be quite small at the moment because I've found that no matter what size you make it, it always seems to come in at 64 pixels in size, which is quite small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click that, and I'm going to double click this, and it opens up the brush editing name, and I'm going to make the pixel size for 500. Now you could move the slider, but it's easier to get to the size you want just by typing it. But I will increase the hardness. It always seems to be set at 80%, but as this is text, I want it to be really sharp, so I'm going to increase the hardness up to 100. And next thing I want to do is the spacing, and I'm going to, you've got a representation of here what this would look like, and I'm just going to increase the spacing so they don't overlap so much. That will do about there, and then I'll close that. So now if I use this, it is a much bigger size and easier to see. What I will now do is duplicate this, and by double clicking on it, open up this menu again, and then just clicking on duplicate, close that, highlight this one, double click it again, and this time I'm going to set this one at 1000, click close. So now I have two brushes, one the size of 500, one the size of 1000, and this one, as you can see, is almost virtually the size it started out at. And if you click and hold and drag, it will slowly write that name all over the page. So let me just press Ctrl and Z, get rid of a lot of these. Right, so you can also obviously change the colour. So if we go to the colour tab, click, you could then make it in different colours. So that is how you can quickly change the colours and the size if you make different versions. I mean, admittedly, if you wanted to change the size, you could just do it from here, because as you see it's set on 1000. You could increase it up and make it bigger that way. But I prefer to make one of a 500 and one of 1000, and you can rename the brush, but just by highlighting it, right clicking and rename, and it's called brush copy, but I'll call this one name 1000, click OK, and then this one rename as name 500, and then when you put the cursor over the top of it, it should tell you the name of that particular brush. So this would be quite handy if you want to watermark one of your pictures, because I've got one here which I did myself of Walton on the Naze where I live, and if I come to the brush tool, and it's set on black at the moment, so I could just quickly put a watermark on my picture just by using the brush tool without having to load in a picture as a different layer. So again, you could change the colour and the size and the position, because you can easily change the position of this just by going to the move tool, and oh, it's not on a separate layer. What I should have done was make it on a separate layer. Let me get rid of that. Make a separate layer. Come to the brush tool, click that there, then come to the move tool, and then I could move it wherever I want on the picture, and obviously increase the size if I wanted to watermark the picture a bit more prominently. So that is one good use of having text as a brush tool. Let me go back to this one here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Ctrl and Z a few times to get rid of a lot of these. There we go. Now you're not restricted to text. You can also load in images. So let me go back to the brush menu, and you got here new image brush as one of the options. You click on that, it will look for a PNG file. Now I have a couple here that I have prepared. One I've already used when I was practicing this, which I think is the red motorbike, so I'll pick the grey motorbike and click open. So I should have put this in a different folder, but it's still in the name folder. But as you can see, this came in at 64 in size, which is quite small, so I'm going to increase the size to 500. Again, as it's an image, you want it to be sharp, so I will make it 100% in hardness, and I will just alter the spacing so they're not really touching, and then click close. So I can just click once to put it once or twice, or click and hold and drag, and it will make a lot of different ones one after the other. I mean, it's probably not as much use for a brush tip that is an image, but you do have that option. So that is pretty much all I can show you, I think, on this subject in Affinity Photo. I now want to look at it in Affinity Designer, which is pretty much the same, but there is a slight difference. So I will just come back in a second and we'll look at Affinity Designer. Okay, this is Affinity Designer, and again, we're going to do pretty much the same thing in this as we done in Affinity Photo. But as I said before, there is a slight difference because there are two types of brush tools in Affinity Designer. The first one is on the draw persona, which is a vector brush, and the other one is on the pixel persona, which is the normal paintbrush. Now the pixel persona normal paintbrush works in exactly the same way as it did in Affinity Photo. has your slightly different menus, but there are different menus here and different images within that. And you've got this menu here where you can create category, rename category. You can make a new intense brush, so if I click on that and I navigate to that same name PNG that I made. Again, I should have changed folders. I keep forgetting to do that, but it is in the basics folder. I think you can move it actually. Move to category. Here we go. Move to category, and I'm going to put it into the brushes folder. So if I go to brushes, that is now in there. Again, set on 64. So I'm going to set this at 500. Hardness at 100, and just alter the spacing. So one click easily gets me one image without them being too close together. So there you can see how quickly and the same that is. Again, this is one I made earlier, which is of PNG image of a zebra brooch, but I could have just used the same PNG that I used in Affinity Photo. So pretty much everything here works the same as Affinity Photo. So let me press Ctrl and Z to get rid of a lot of these, or all of them in fact, and I will go back to the draw persona and come to the vector brush tool, and then the brushes tip, and as you can see here there are some similar brush menus, but with these ones, a good one here is like this chain link one. This is a good example, and if you click, hold and drag, you can move it around a lot easier and make a more flowing image than you could with the paintbrush tool. Because with that, if it were that where you clicked and dragged, it wouldn't work as well. I can't explain, mainly because I don't really understand it. And so what you need with this, if I go to, where is it here? So I did make a brushes folder, but I haven't put anything in it yet. And what I would do is I will add a new solid brush. No, that's wrong. Let me delete that. What I want is, a new textured intensity brush, and I use that same name file. Again, it is size 64, but I will double click that, increase the size, maybe not as much as 500, I'll come up to near 200 I think. That would do. And then when I click now, I can do a lot. You can just, if you can keep a straight line, you could just do it like that. But you do have the option of making a lot weirder shapes with a bit of text. So I'll press Ctrl and Z and get rid of some of these, and then I will come back, because that was the textured intensity brush, and if I have textured image brush, again click on that name file, and this time I'll make it 200 again. And this time it's just the text without the background, so you can either have it black with no background or inverted, like that, depending on how you want to use it. I mean, obviously, the more you twist the text around, the less convincing it will look. But it is different. It works in a different way to the paintbrush tool that you can find in the pixel persona and in Affinity Photo. You have a lot more control or influence on where it's going and what it does. So obviously you can import an image the same way, but it probably wouldn't work as well. Probably let's go for the textured image and go for that bike again. See, the site already looks a bit weird like that. Let's just see what it looks like. See, it doesn't really look like a bike. Let's increase the size. It probably will get better the bigger it is, or not. No, so the image is not as forgiving as it is with the text. Now I'm guessing that people who know what they're doing with this particular tool will do a far better job of this than me, which is proved by the ones that Serif have given you to work with, which is far better than anything I could do, because they do work better than my image. So I think I sort of lost my way a bit there, which I'm very sorry about. Let me just get rid of a lot of these, and I will go back to Affinity Photo. Just give one last reminder of looking at the video that Serif have made themselves for the basic look at how the brush tool works. So I'll suggest you go and have a look at that, and I hope you've enjoyed watching this and have learnt something from this. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.